The starship Eternal Dawn moved slowly through the colorful clouds of the Kepler Nebula. Its white hull gleamed under the strange purple and blue lights that danced around it. The ship looked peaceful as it drifted between the gas clouds, like a whale swimming through calm ocean waters. Captain Kim Tae stood on the bridge, watching the swirling colors outside through the main window. He was a tall man with kind eyes and graying hair at his temples. His uniform was simple and clean, with no military decorations or weapons. He looked exactly like what he was supposed to be, the captain of a research ship. "Captain, we're getting some interesting readings from the third planet in the system ahead," said Han Bo-Ra from her position at the navigation station. She was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and bright eyes that always seemed excited about something new. Her fingers moved quickly across her control panel, pulling up star charts and data streams. Kim Tae walked over to look at her screen. The numbers and graphs meant little to him. He was more of a people person than a scientist, but he could see that something had caught her attention. "What kind of readings?" he asked. "Unusual energy signatures. Could be natural phenomena, but the patterns are too regular. Almost like—" She paused, frowning at the data. "Almost like artificial structures." From across the bridge, Dr. Park Subin looked up from her own workstation. She was the ship's chief science officer, a woman in her early 30s with sharp features and careful movements. Everything about her seemed precise and thoughtful. "That's very interesting," she said, standing up and walking over to join them. "We haven't detected any signs of intelligent life in this sector before. This could be a major discovery." Kim Tae nodded. The Eternal Dawn had been traveling through this region of space for 3 months now, studying star formations and collecting samples of space dust and cosmic radiation. It was quiet work, the kind that most people found boring. But it was important work, helping humanity understand the galaxy they were slowly expanding into. "Should we move closer to investigate?" he asked. "I think we should," Dr. Park said, "but carefully. We don't know what we're dealing with." In the engine room deep inside the ship, Li Wu-jin was working on one of the power systems. He was a stocky man with strong hands that were always dirty with grease or coolant. The engine room was his kingdom, filled with humming machines and blinking lights. He knew every sound the ship made, every vibration that meant something was working properly or needed attention. He wiped his hands on a rag and checked the power readings on his screen. Everything looked normal. The fusion reactors were running smoothly, providing power for the ship's life support, engines, and scientific equipment. It was a good ship, even if it was getting old. He'd been taking care of it for 5 years now, and he knew all its little problems and quirks. "Wu-jin," came Captain Kim's voice over the communication system. "We're going to need to move closer to that planet system. How are our engines?" "Running fine, Captain," Wu-jin replied into his headset. "We can go wherever you need us to go." On the bridge, communications specialist Yoon Jin-ho was monitoring the radio frequencies, listening for any signals from other ships or planets. He was a quiet man who preferred machines to people. His equipment could pick up signals from very far away, and he spent most of his time with headphones on, listening to the background noise of space. Today, though, something was different. He was hearing faint signals that didn't sound natural. They were too organized, too purposeful. Someone was talking out there, but in a language he'd never heard before. "Captain," he said, removing his headphones, "I'm picking up some unusual communications. They're encrypted, but they're definitely artificial. Someone's out there." Kim Tae felt a small chill run down his spine. First contact with alien life was something every human dreamed about, but it was also something that could go very wrong very quickly. Humanity had only been traveling to other star systems for about 50 years, and they'd never met another intelligent species before. "Can you tell where the signals are coming from?" he asked. "The same system Han Bo-Ra detected the energy readings from," Yoon Jin-ho replied. "Whatever's down there, they're talking to each other." Security Chief Jang Dong-hyun looked up from his station near the back of the bridge. He was responsible for the safety of the 200 people on board the Eternal Dawn. Most of them were scientists and researchers, with just a small security team to handle any problems that might come up. The ship wasn't built for fighting. It was built for learning. "Captain, maybe we should be careful," he said. "We don't know if these aliens are friendly." Kim Tae nodded. "You're right. Let's approach slowly and try to make peaceful contact. Dr. Park, prepare a standard first contact message. Yoon Jin-ho, see if you can learn anything about their language. Han Bo-ra, set course for the system, but keep us at a safe distance. As the Eternal Dawn changed direction and began moving toward the mysterious signals, none of the humans knew they were already being watched. Far away, hidden behind one of the system's moons, 3 large alien warships waited in the darkness. They were long and dark, covered in weapon ports and armor plating. Each one was twice the size of the human research ship, and they carried enough firepower to destroy a small city. On the bridge of the largest ship, War Admiral Krelthis studied the image of the approaching human vessel on his viewing screen. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. His people, the Vextar, had been warriors for thousands of years. They had conquered 17 star systems by being stronger and more ruthless than anyone who stood against them. The human ship looked pathetic to his eyes. It had no visible weapons, no heavy armor, no military markings. It was just a simple research vessel, probably filled with weak scientists who had never seen real combat. "War Admiral," said his tactical officer, "the human ship is approaching our position. Should we attack now?" Krelthis studied the data his sensors were giving him about the human ship. It was definitely unarmed and unarmored. The energy readings showed normal civilian power systems, nothing that could threaten a Vextar warship. The crew was probably terrified right now, having no idea they were about to be attacked. "Not yet," he said. "Let them come closer. I want to test our new plasma cannons on them, and I want to capture some of them alive for questioning. We need to learn about this new species and how many ships they have." The Vextar had been studying human radio transmissions for months, ever since they first detected human presence in this part of the galaxy. What they heard convinced them that humans were a weak, divided species. Their broadcasts were full of entertainment and trivial concerns. They seemed to spend more time arguing with each other than preparing for war, perfect prey for the Vextar Empire. "Their ship design is very primitive," noted the tactical officer. "No redundant systems, no battle armor, no weapon pods. They'll surrender as soon as we show them our true power." Krelthis smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Yes, this will be easy. Too easy, perhaps. But it will give our crews good practice, and we'll learn valuable information about human weaknesses." Meanwhile, on the Eternal Dawn, the humans continued their approach, still unaware they were flying into a trap. Captain Kim Tae stood on his bridge, looking out at the stars and thinking about the historic moment they might be experiencing. First contact with an alien species could change everything for humanity. Dr. Park Subin was preparing her scientific equipment to study whatever they found. Lee Woo-jin was making sure the engines were ready for any maneuvering they might need to do. Han Bo-ra was carefully plotting their course through the asteroid field around the system. Yoon Jin-ho was still trying to decode the alien signals. Security. Chief Jang Dong-hyun was the only one who seemed worried. Something about this situation felt wrong to him, but he couldn't put his finger on what it was. The signals they were detecting were too organized, too military-sounding for a peaceful research station or colony. "Captain," he said quietly, "I recommend we prepare for the possibility that these aliens might not be friendly." Kim Tae looked at him thoughtfully. "What do you suggest?" "Just basic precautions. Make sure all our emergency systems are ready. Have the crew review evacuation procedures. Nothing dramatic, just being prepared." Kim Tae nodded. "Good thinking. Make it happen, but keep it quiet. We don't want to panic anyone." As the Eternal Dawn moved deeper into the system, both sides prepared for what was coming. The humans hoped for peaceful contact and scientific discovery. The aliens prepared for an easy victory and valuable intelligence. Neither side knew how wrong they were about the other. The trap was set, and the Eternal Dawn was flying straight into it. The space around the Eternal Dawn suddenly filled with bright flashes of light. 3 massive alien warships appeared out of nowhere, their dark hulls bristling with weapons. They had been hiding, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal themselves. "Captain." Kim Tae felt his heart jump as the alien ships surrounded his vessel. Each one was enormous, easily twice the size of the Eternal Dawn, with thick armor plating and rows of weapon ports that looked like hungry mouths. The research ship suddenly seemed very small and fragile. "Captain!" Han Bo-ra called out from her station, her voice tight with fear. 3 large vessels have just dropped out of hyperspace. They're surrounding us. I can see that, Kim Tae said, trying to keep his voice calm even though his mind was racing. He looked at the alien ships on his main screen and felt a chill run down his spine. These were clearly warships built for destruction, not exploration. Dr. Park Soo-bin had gone very still at her station. Her hands moved quickly across her controls, but her face showed no emotion. She was scanning the alien ships, gathering data about their design and capabilities. Even in this dangerous moment, her scientific mind was working. Captain, Yoon Jin-ho said from his communication station, they're sending us a signal. Audio only. Should I put it through? Kim Tae straightened his uniform and took a deep breath. This was the moment humanity had been waiting for. First, contact with an alien species. He just wished it was happening under better circumstances. Put it through, he said. The voice that came through the speakers was harsh and cold. It spoke in heavily accented but understandable English, as if the speaker had learned the language recently and wasn't comfortable with it. Human vessel, the voice said. You will surrender immediately. Shut down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in your destruction. Kim Tae exchanged glances with his crew. This wasn't exactly the peaceful first contact they had hoped for. He stepped forward toward the communication station. This is Captain Kim Tae of the research vessel Eternal Dawn, he said in his most diplomatic voice. We are peaceful explorers on a scientific mission. We mean you no harm and request safe passage through your territory. There was a pause. Then, what sounded like harsh laughter came through the speakers. Peaceful explorers, the alien voice repeated mockingly. How typical of your weak species. You come into our territory uninvited and then beg for mercy when you realize you are outmatched. On the bridge of the lead alien warship, War Admiral Krelthis looked at the image of the human ship with satisfaction. Just as he had expected, they were trying to talk their way out of trouble instead of fighting. His intelligence about human nature had been correct. They were cowards who preferred negotiation to combat. War Admiral, his tactical officer said, their ship shows no sign of weapons or defensive systems. They're completely helpless. Krelthis nodded. Of course they are. Look at them. They're scientists and researchers, not warriors. They probably haven't even seen real combat before. Back on the Eternal Dawn, Kim Tae was thinking quickly. The alien ships had them completely surrounded and outgunned. Fighting would be suicide, and he had 200 lives depending on his decisions. We're willing to share our scientific data with you, he said into the communication system. We've gathered valuable information about stellar formations and cosmic phenomena. Perhaps we could arrange some kind of trade. Security Chief Jang. Dong Hyun moved quietly to his station and began what looked like a routine check of the ship's emergency systems. His fingers moved across his controls, but he wasn't checking life support or evacuation pods. He was running diagnostics on systems that didn't officially exist on a research vessel. The alien voice came back, sounding even more amused. Trade? You have nothing we want except information about your species and your military capabilities. Surrender now, and some of you might survive the interrogation. Dr. Park Soo-bin looked up from her station. Captain, she said quietly, I'm reading massive energy buildups in their weapon systems. I don't think they're planning to let us go. Kim Tae nodded grimly. He had reached the same conclusion. These aliens weren't interested in peaceful contact or scientific exchange. They wanted prisoners and information, and they clearly saw humans as an easy target. All crew members, he announced over the ship's internal communication system. This is the captain. We are currently in a dangerous situation with hostile alien forces. Please remain at your stations and prepare for Protocol 7. Throughout the ship, the crew responded to his words. Some looked confused. Protocol 7 wasn't something they remembered from their training, but others, like Engineer Lee Woo-jin, understood immediately and began moving to their real positions. In the engine room, Woo-jin's hands flew across his control panels. To anyone watching, it looked like he was preparing for an emergency shutdown of the ship's systems, getting ready to surrender. In reality, he was bringing online power systems that weren't supposed to exist on a research vessel. Engines standing. By for emergency protocols, he reported to the bridge. but his voice carried a different tone now. Sharper, more professional. Tactical Officer Choi Min-seo, who had been quietly working at a station in the back of the bridge, suddenly became much more active. Her console, which had been displaying scientific data moments before, now showed weapons targeting information and defensive system status reports. "Captain," she said in a voice that was no longer nervous or uncertain, "all defensive systems are responding normally, awaiting your orders." The aliens were growing impatient. "Human Captain," the harsh voice said, "you have 30 seconds to surrender or we will open fire." Kim Tae looked around his bridge. His crew was ready, even though they still looked like frightened researchers to anyone watching. He made his decision. "We need more time to discuss this among our crew," he said into the communications system. "This is a big decision for us." 10 more seconds, the alien replied coldly. "Then we start shooting." On the alien flagship, War Admiral Krell Thys was enjoying this moment. The humans were clearly terrified and desperate for more time. It was exactly what he expected from a weak species that had never faced real military power. "War Admiral," his weapons officer said, "shall I target their engines or their life support?" "Target their engines first," Krell Thys replied. "I want them disabled, not destroyed. We need some of them alive for questioning." The countdown reached 0. Bright, energy beams shot out from the alien warships, striking the Eternal Dawn's outer hull. Explosions bloomed along the research ship's sides as sections of hull plating were blown away. Alarms began ringing throughout the ship. "Hull breach on decks 7 and 8, someone called out. "Emergency crews responding." The Eternal Dawn shook under the impact of the alien weapons. Lights flickered on the bridge, and Kim Tae had to grab onto his command chair to keep from falling. "Damage report," he called out. "Outer hull damage only," Choi Min-seo reported. "All critical systems are intact." The alien voice came back over the communication system. "That was a warning. The next shots will be aimed at your life support systems. Surrender now." Kim Tae looked at his crew one more time. They all looked back at him with expressions that were no longer fearful. Instead, there was determination in their eyes and something else: anticipation. "You want to see what happens when you attack a human ship?" Kim Tae said into the communication system, his voice suddenly cold and hard. "You're about to find out." He turned to his crew. "Protocol 7 is now in effect. All stations drop." The masquerade. What happened next would have shocked the aliens if they had understood what they were seeing. Throughout the Eternal Dawn, hidden panels slid open and concealed systems came online. The ship's energy signature began changing as military-grade equipment powered up. Dr. Park Soo-bin stood up from her station and straightened her uniform. When she spoke again, her voice was different, commanding and confident. "All intelligence gathering systems are active, Captain," she said. "We have detailed scans of their ships and technology." Lee Woo-jin's voice came over the communication system from the engine room. "Captain, all primary and secondary power systems are online. We have full military power available." The aliens were about to launch their boarding pods when their sensors detected the changes happening to the human ship. Energy readings that had been civilian-level moments before were now spiking to military standards. "War Admiral," the tactical officer said, confusion in his voice. "The human ship's power signature is changing. I'm reading massive energy increases across all their systems." Krell Thys frowned at his displays. This wasn't supposed to happen. Research ships didn't have hidden power systems or military-grade equipment. "That's impossible," he said. "Our intelligence clearly showed that human civilian ships are unarmed and unarmored." On the Eternal Dawn's bridge, Captain Kim Tae smiled coldly as he watched the alien ships on his screen. They had no idea what they had just attacked. "Choi Min-seo," he said, "are all weapon systems ready?" "All weapons online and targeted, Captain," she replied. "Awaiting your orders." The aliens finally understood that something was very wrong. The human ship they had thought was helpless was somehow transforming before their eyes. The moment the alien boarding pods launched toward the Eternal Dawn, everything changed. Hidden panels along the research ship's hull suddenly slid open with mechanical precision. What had looked like simple hull plating moments before revealed rows of weapon ports that had been perfectly concealed. The ship's entire outer surface seemed to reshape itself as armor plating moved into position and defensive systems emerged from their hiding places. War Admiral Krelthis watched in growing horror as the human vessel transformed before his eyes. Energy readings that had been at civilian levels just minutes ago were now climbing to military standards that rivaled his own warships. "What is happening?" he demanded of his tactical officer. "I don't understand, War Admiral," the officer replied, his voice shaking. "The human ship appears to be changing. Our sensors are detecting massive increases in power output and the emergence of what can only be weapon systems." On the Eternal Dawn's bridge, Captain Kim Tae stood with his hands behind his back, watching the alien boarding pods approach on his main screen. His entire demeanor had changed from diplomatic scientist to military commander in the space of a few seconds. "Distance to boarding pods?" he asked calmly. 15,000 meters. "And closing," Tactical Officer Choi Min-seo replied. She was no longer the nervous young woman she had appeared to be. Her movements were now precise and professional as she worked her weapons controls. "Fire when ready," Kim Tae said. The space around the Eternal Dawn suddenly lit up with brilliant energy beams. Point defense systems that hadn't existed moments before opened fire on the approaching boarding pods. The alien craft, designed to punch through the hull of an undefended research vessel, were completely unprepared for military-grade defensive fire. One by one, the boarding pods disappeared in bright explosions. Their thick armor, meant to protect them during forced entries, was useless against the concentrated fire of the human ship's hidden weapons. In less than 30 seconds, all 12 pods had been destroyed. "Boarding threat eliminated," Choi Min-seo reported. From the engine room, Lee Woo-jin's voice came over the communication system. "Captain, all primary fusion reactors are now online. We have full military power available. Stealth systems are standing by." The aliens watched in shock as their boarding assault was completely destroyed. These weren't the defensive systems of a research vessel. This was military-grade equipment operated by people who clearly knew how to use it. "War Admiral," the weapons officer said urgently, "should we open fire with our main batteries?" Krelthis was trying to understand what was happening. His intelligence about human ships had been completely wrong. This wasn't a helpless research vessel crewed by frightened scientists. This was something else entirely. "Yes," he said finally. "All ships, open fire. Destroy them." The 3 alien warships unleashed their full firepower on the Eternal Dawn. Massive energy beams and plasma bolts filled the space around the human ship. It should have been completely destroyed in seconds. Instead, defensive shields that the aliens hadn't even detected suddenly flared to life around the research vessel. The incoming fire struck the shields and was absorbed or deflected harmlessly, away. The Eternal Dawn sat in the middle of the alien attack like a rock in a storm, completely unharmed. "Shields holding at 97%, Choi Min-seo reported calmly. "No damage to primary systems." Captain Kim Tae nodded. "Return fire. Target their weapon systems first." What happened next shocked the aliens even more than the appearance of the human defenses. The Eternal Dawn's hidden weapons opened fire, and the precision of their targeting was incredible. Instead of trying to destroy the alien ships outright, the human weapons surgically removed specific systems. Energy beams sliced through the aliens' main gun turrets, severing power connections and disabling weapons without causing massive explosions. Quantum torpedoes punched through armor plating to destroy targeting computers and fire control systems. In less than a minute, all 3 alien warships found their offensive capabilities severely reduced. "How are they doing this?" Krelthis demanded. "Their targeting is impossible! No one can be that precise in combat!" Dr. Park Subin, who had shed her mild scientist persona completely, was coordinating the attack from her station. Her fingers flew across controls that had nothing to do with scientific research. "Enemy ship targeting systems are down by 60%, she reported to Captain Kim Tae. "Their fire control computers are using predictable algorithms. We can anticipate their firing solutions." "Continue the attack," Kim Tae ordered. "But remember, we want prisoners, not corpses." The aliens tried to adapt their tactics, but everything they did seemed to be anticipated by the humans. When they tried to surround the Eternal Dawn, the human ship used the nebula's gas clouds to mask its movements, appearing and disappearing like a ghost. When they attempted coordinated attacks, their shots somehow missed as the research vessel performed maneuvers that should have been impossible for a ship of its size. Engineer Li Wu-jin was pushing the ship's systems far beyond their supposed limits. In the engine room, machinery that looked like standard civilian equipment was revealing its true nature. The fusion reactors weren't just providing normal power. They were military-grade units capable of supporting advanced weapons and defensive systems. "Captain," he reported, "I'm reconfiguring the weapon systems for maximum efficiency. We can switch between energy weapons, projectile systems, and electronic warfare as needed." Navigation Officer Han Bo-ra was plotting courses through the nebula that took advantage of every gravitational eddy and electromagnetic field. What had looked like simple space navigation was actually complex tactical maneuvering. "New course plotted, Captain," she said. "We can use the asteroid field to break their formation." Communications specialist Yoon Jin Ho had completely abandoned his mild technician act. His equipment was now actively jamming alien communications and intercepting their tactical data. "Captain, I've broken their encryption," he reported. "I can hear everything they're saying to each other. They're starting to panic." Security Chief Jang Dong-hyun was coordinating internal defenses throughout the ship. Teams that had appeared to be maintenance crews and research assistants were now revealed to be military specialists preparing for the possibility of enemy boarders. "All defensive teams are in position," he reported. "If they try to board us again, they're in for a very unpleasant surprise." On the alien flagship, chaos was spreading. The Vextar had fought many battles, but they had never faced an enemy like this. The humans seemed to know exactly what the aliens were going to do before they did it. "War, Admiral," the tactical officer said desperately. "They're jamming our communications and predicting our movements. It's like they've been studying our tactics for months." Krelthis stared at the human ship on his viewing screen. The Eternal Dawn was systematically dismantling his fleet, and there seemed to be nothing he could do to stop it. Every move his ships made was countered. Every attack was anticipated and defeated. "What kind of research vessel carries military equipment like this?" he asked aloud. The answer came from an unexpected source. Captain Kim Tae's voice suddenly came through the alien communication system, clear and confident. "War Admiral Krelthis," the human said. "I think it's time we had an honest conversation." Krelthis was startled to hear his name. How did the human know who he was? "You've been wondering what kind of research vessel we are," Kim Tae continued. "The answer is simple. We're not a research vessel at all. We're the UES Eternal Dawn, a military reconnaissance ship designed to look exactly like a civilian craft. And you've just made a very serious mistake." The alien commander felt a chill run through him. A reconnaissance ship meant intelligence gathering. If the humans had been watching his forces, "That's impossible," he said into his communication system. "Our intelligence clearly showed that human civilian ships are unarmed." Captain Kim Tae's laughter came through the speakers. "Your intelligence was exactly what we wanted you to see. Every human ship you've observed, every transmission you've intercepted, every piece of data you've gathered about our capabilities, it was all carefully prepared for you. We've been studying you for months, learning your tactics, your weaknesses, your patterns of behavior." Dr. Park Subin looked up from her station. "Captain, we have complete scans of their ship designs, weapons systems, and tactical procedures. Our mission intelligence gathering is complete." The terrible truth was beginning to dawn on War Admiral Krelthis. The humans hadn't stumbled into his territory by accident. They had come here deliberately, disguised as harmless researchers, to study his forces and gather intelligence about the Vextar Empire. "You used yourselves as bait," he said. "Exactly," Kim Tae replied. "We knew that if we appeared weak and helpless, you would attack us, and when you did, we would learn everything. We needed to know about how you fight, how you think, and how we can defeat you." The Eternal Dawn continued its precise attacks on the alien ships. One by one, their weapon systems were disabled, their engines damaged, their shields overloaded. The humans weren't trying to destroy the Vextar ships, they were capturing them. "War Admiral," the weapons officer said, his voice filled with despair. "All our main batteries are offline. The battle that followed was unlike anything the Vexitar had ever experienced. They had conquered 17 star systems through brute force and overwhelming firepower, But the humans fought with a completely different approach that left the aliens confused and helpless. Captain Kim Tae stood calmly on his bridge, watching as his crew dismantled the alien fleet with surgical precision. The Eternal Dawn moved through the nebula like a predator, hunting in its natural environment, using every gas cloud and electromagnetic field to its advantage. "Hanbo-Ra, take us behind that asteroid cluster," he ordered. "Use the gravitational pull to slingshot us around and come up behind their second ship." "Yes, Captain," Hanbo-Ra replied, her fingers dancing across her navigation controls. What looked like an impossible maneuver to the aliens was actually a carefully calculated use of physics that only humans seemed to understand. The Eternal Dawn disappeared into the asteroid field, using the large rocks to block the aliens' sensors. When it emerged moments later, it was directly behind the second Vextar warship, in the perfect position to target the alien vessel's engines. "Target their engine cooling systems," Captain Kim Tae instructed Choi Min Seo. "We want them disabled, not destroyed." Energy beams lanced out from the human ship, striking with impossible accuracy. The alien ship's engines began overheating immediately as their cooling systems failed. Within minutes, the massive warship was drifting helplessly. War Admiral Krelthis watched in horror as his fleet was taken apart piece by piece. The humans weren't just fighting, they were learning. Every time his ships tried a new tactic, the human vessel adapted and countered it almost immediately. "How are they doing this?" he demanded of his tactical officer. "I don't know, War Admiral. It's like they can predict our every move." On the Eternal Dawn, Dr. Park Subin was coordinating with the ship's advanced computer systems to analyze Vextar battle patterns in real time. Her scientific background wasn't in biology as she had pretended. It was in military intelligence and xenopsychology. "Captain," she reported, "I'm detecting consistent patterns in their tactical responses. The Vextar Empire appears to use standardized battle doctrines with very little variation. They rely on overwhelming force rather than adaptability." "What are their weaknesses?" Kim Tae asked. "They can't adapt quickly to unexpected situations. Their command structure is too rigid. Individual ship captains wait for orders from the War Admiral instead of acting independently. And their weapons systems have a significant blind spot directly above and below their ships." Captain Kim Tae smiled. "Exploit all of those weaknesses." What followed was a masterclass in human tactical flexibility. Instead of engaging the aliens in the direct confrontation they expected, the Eternal Dawn began using three-dimensional combat maneuvers that took advantage of the Vextar ship's design limitations. Li Wujin's voice came from the engine room. "Captain, I'm rotating our weapon configurations. We can now fire from angles the aliens can't respond to." The engineer had done something that should have been impossible. He had reconfigured the ship's weapon systems during combat, allowing them to fire in directions that the original design had never intended. It was the kind of improvisation that only humans seemed capable of. Engineer Li Wujin had spent years modifying the Eternal Dawn systems, adding capabilities that weren't in any official manual. The ship's modular design allowed him to reroute, power, change weapon configurations, and even modify the engine's output patterns during battle. "Hanbo-Ra," Captain Kim Tae said, "take us above the lead ship. Use their blind spot." The Eternal Dawn suddenly accelerated upward at an angle that confused the alien sensors. The Vextar ships were designed for combat on a single plane, like naval vessels fighting on the surface of an ocean. The humans fought in true three-dimensional space, using the full volume of the battlefield. "Above target," Hanbo-Ra reported. "They can't elevate their weapons high enough to target us." "Disable their command center," Kim Tae ordered. Precision. Energy beams struck the alien flagship's bridge section, carefully avoiding areas that would cause massive casualties while completely destroying their command and control systems. The alien ship's ability to coordinate with the rest of the fleet was gone in seconds. Yoon Jin-ho looked up from his communication station. "Captain, I've successfully taken control of their tactical communication network. They can't talk to each other anymore." The communications specialist had done more than just jam the alien signals. He had actually infiltrated their network and was now controlling their information flow. The Vextar ships were operating blind, unable to coordinate their attacks or share tactical information. Security Chief Jang Dong-hyun was monitoring the battle from his station, but he was also preparing for what would come next. Teams throughout. The ship were getting ready for boarding operations, not to defend against alien attackers, but to capture alien ships. "Boarding teams are ready, Captain," he reported. "We can take control of their vessels whenever you give the order." The third alien warship tried desperately to escape, turning away from the battle and attempting to jump to hyperspace. But the humans had anticipated this as well. "Choi Min-seo, target their hyperspace generator," Captain Kim Tae ordered. "Target acquired and locked," she replied. "Firing." The alien ship's attempt to escape was stopped instantly as its hyperspace systems were precisely destroyed. They were trapped in normal space with the human ship, unable to run and unable to fight effectively. War Admiral Krelthis found himself on a ship that was mostly disabled, with no way to communicate with his other vessels, no way to escape, and facing an enemy that seemed to anticipate his every move. It was the most humiliating defeat in Vextar military history. "War Admiral," his weapons officer said quietly. "What are your orders?" Krelthis stared at the human ship on his screen. The Eternal Dawn had single-handedly defeated 3 of the Empire's most powerful warships without even trying to destroy them. The humans had fought with a level of precision and adaptability that he had never seen before. "I don't understand," he said aloud. "How can one ship defeat an entire battle group?" Captain Kim Tae's voice came through the communication system again. "Because you made the fundamental error of underestimating your enemy, War Admiral. You saw what you expected to see. A weak, helpless research vessel crewed by frightened scientists. You never considered that it might be something else entirely." Dr. Park Soo-bin stood up from her station and looked at the main screen showing the disabled alien ships. "Captain, our analysis of their technology is complete. We now have detailed information about Vextar ship design, weapon systems, defensive capabilities, and tactical doctrines." "Excellent," Kim Tae replied. "And their knowledge of human capabilities?" "Completely wrong," she said with satisfaction. "Everything they think they know about us is based on carefully prepared misinformation. They have no idea what our real military capabilities are." Engineer Lee Woo-jin's voice came from the engine room. "Captain, we've successfully tested all our new systems in actual combat. The modular weapon configurations work perfectly, and the adaptive shielding has learned to counter their energy weapons." Navigation Officer Han Bo-ra looked up from her station. "Captain, we've also proven that human 3-dimensional combat tactics are highly effective against enemies who think in 2 dimensions. Communication Specialist Yoon Jin-ho added his report. "And we've demonstrated that our electronic warfare capabilities can completely shut down enemy communications and coordination." Security Chief Jang Dong-hyun nodded from his position. "Our boarding teams are ready to take control of all 3 alien ships, Captain. We can capture their entire force intact." Captain Kim Tae looked around his bridge at his crew, military specialists who had successfully posed as civilian researchers for months while gathering intelligence deep in enemy territory. The mission had been a complete success. "War Admiral Krelthis," he said into the communication system, "you and your crews are now prisoners of the United Earth Space Force. Your ships are disabled and your weapons are offline. You have 2 choices: surrender peacefully and be treated according to the laws of war, or continue to resist and face the consequences." On the alien flagship, Krelthis realized that he had no real choice. His fleet was defeated, his ships were disabled, and he was facing an enemy that had completely outclassed him in every aspect of warfare. "What do you want from us?" he asked. "Information," Captain Kim Tae replied. "And your cooperation in delivering a message to your empire about the true nature of humanity." The War Admiral understood that his defeat was about to become something much larger. The humans weren't just capturing his ships, they were sending a message to the entire Vextar Empire about what happened when someone made the mistake of attacking humanity. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were not the weak, divided species they appeared to be, and that lesson was going to be delivered by the survivors of this battle. 3 hours after the battle ended, War Admiral Krelthis found himself sitting in what he had thought was the Eternal Dawn's research laboratory. Now he could see it for what it really was: a military briefing room designed to look like scientific equipment to fool casual observers. Captain Kim Tae sat across from him at a metal table, no longer pretending to be a peaceful researcher. His uniform now showed his real rank insignia, and his demeanor was that of a professional military officer who had just completed a successful mission. "I suppose you have questions," Kim Tae said calmly. Krelthis looked around the room. Where he had expected to see microscopes and specimen containers, he now saw tactical displays and intelligence analysis equipment. Everything about the ship had been an elaborate deception. "How long have you been watching us?" he asked. 6 months, Kim Tae replied. "Ever since our deep space monitoring stations detected Vextar expansion into this sector. We've been studying your military tactics, your technology, and your psychology." Dr. Park Subin entered the room carrying a datapad. She no longer looked like a mild scientist. Her bearing was that of a military intelligence officer who had successfully completed a complex operation. "War Admiral," she said, sitting down next to Captain Kim Tae, "I'd like to show you something interesting." She activated a holographic display that showed detailed schematics of Vextar ships, weapon systems, and tactical formations. The level of detail was incredible. It was as if the humans had been inside Vextar military facilities for months. "This is what we've learned about your empire during our intelligence-gathering mission," she continued. "We know the location of your major fleet bases, the strength of your forces in each system, and the standard operating procedures of your military." Krelthis stared at the display in horror. The humans had information that should have been impossible for them to obtain. Fleet movements, base locations, weapons specifications. Everything the Vextar Empire considered classified was laid out before him. "How did you get this information?" he asked. "Simple," Kim Tae replied. "We put ships like the Eternal Dawn in dozens of systems throughout your territory. Ships that looked exactly like harmless research vessels, crewed by people who appeared to be civilian scientists. Your forces ignored them completely, just like you ignored us." The terrible truth was becoming clear to Krelthis. Every human civilian ship the Vextar had encountered could have been a military intelligence vessel in disguise. His empire had been completely infiltrated without even knowing it. Every transmission your ships have sent, every tactical maneuver your fleets have performed, every weakness in your defenses has been observed and recorded, Dr. Park continued. "We know more about your military capabilities than some of your own commanders do." Communications specialist Yoon Jin-ho entered the room and handed a data chip to Captain Kim Tae. "Captain, the complete battle recordings are ready for transmission." Kim Tae held up the small device. "This contains a complete record of today's battle, War Admiral. It shows how a single human ship defeated 3 of your most powerful warships without even trying to destroy them. What do you think will happen when this recording reaches your empire's leadership?" Krelthis felt a chill run through him. The Vextar Empire's entire military doctrine was based on the belief that overwhelming force could defeat any enemy. But the humans had proven that superior tactics and technology could overcome raw firepower. "They won't believe it," he said quietly. "Won't they?" Kim Tae asked. "You're going to be the one to show it to them." Engineer Lee Woo-jin appeared in the doorway. "Captain, we've finished our analysis of the Vextar technology. Their ships are powerful, but they're designed for fighting enemies who use similar tactics. They have significant vulnerabilities that can be exploited by more advanced forces." "What kind of vulnerabilities?" Krelthis asked, despite himself. Lee Woo-jin looked at Captain Kim Tae, who nodded for him to continue. "Your ships are built like fortresses, strong but inflexible. Your weapons are designed for maximum damage, but lack precision. Your tactics rely on overwhelming force rather than adaptability. Against enemies who think like you do, these are advantages. Against humans, they're weaknesses." Security Chief Jang Dong-hyun joined the group. "War Admiral, we've completed our interrogation of your surviving crew members. They've confirmed what we already suspected. The Vextar Empire has never faced an enemy that could match your military technology. That's why you've been so successful," Captain Kim Tae explained. "You've been fighting primitive civilizations that couldn't resist your superior firepower. But humanity isn't primitive, and we don't fight the way you expect us to." Navigation Officer Han Bo-ra appeared with another datapad. "Captain, we've calculated the most efficient route back to Vextar space. The War Admiral's ship can reach the nearest base in 10 days if we repair their engines." Kim Tae nodded. "Excellent. War Admiral, here's what's going to happen. We're going to repair one of your ships, just enough to get you home. You're going to take that battle recording and our message back to your Empire's leadership. What message? Krelthis asked. Captain Kim Tae stood up and walked to the holographic display. With a gesture, he changed the image to show a star map of the local region. Red markers indicated Vex-Etar-controlled systems, while blue markers showed human territory. The message is simple, he said. Humanity is not the weak, divided species. You think we are? We've been watching you, studying you, and preparing for this moment. Every human ship you've seen could be a disguised military vessel. Every peaceful researcher could be an intelligence operative. Every helpless civilian could be a soldier in disguise. Dr. Park Subin added her own words. Your empire has built its power on conquering civilizations that couldn't fight back effectively. But humanity can fight back, and we will. Any attack on human ships or colonies will be met with a response that your military isn't prepared for. Yun Jin Ho looked up from his communication equipment. War Admiral, we've also prepared a detailed analysis of how human electronic warfare capabilities can shut down Vex-Tar command and control systems. Your Empire's leadership needs to understand that their current tactics and technology are inadequate. Against human forces. Li Wu-jin held up a small device. This contains complete specifications for the defensive systems that protected our ship during the battle. Your weapons couldn't penetrate our shields, and your targeting systems couldn't lock on to us effectively. Human technology is more advanced than your intelligence indicated. Krelthis realized the full scope of what had happened. The humans hadn't just defeated his fleet, they had conducted a comprehensive intelligence operation that had given them complete superiority over Vex-Tar military capabilities. You're telling me that everything my empire believes about human military... Strength is wrong, he said. Completely wrong, Captain Kim Tae confirmed. And you're going to be the one to tell them the truth. Jang Dong-hyun stepped forward. War Admiral, you have a choice. You can deliver our message to your empire's leadership and recommend that they avoid further conflict with humanity. Or you can refuse and spend the rest of your life in human custody while your people wonder what happened to your fleet. What happens if I deliver your message? Krelthis asked. That depends on how your leadership responds, Kim Tae replied. If they're smart, they'll realize that humanity isn't the easy target they thought we were, and they'll avoid our territory. If they're not smart, they'll try to attack us with larger fleets. And if they attack with larger fleets, Captain Kim Tae smiled coldly, then they'll discover that the Eternal Dawn isn't the only disguised military vessel in the human fleet. They'll learn that every human colony is defended by forces they can't detect. And they'll find out that human military technology is even more advanced than what you saw today. Dr. Park Subin activated another display showing dozens of ship signatures scattered throughout the region. These are all the civilian human vessels currently operating in this sector, War Admiral. How many of them do you think are really research ships? Krelthis stared at the display and realized that he had no way of knowing. For all he could tell, every human ship in space could be a military vessel in disguise. You've turned our own tactics against us, he said. You made us think you were weak so we would attack you, and then you used our attack to learn everything about our capabilities. Exactly, Kim Tae replied. And now you're going to take that knowledge back to your empire and explain to them that attacking humanity was the worst mistake they could have made. Han Bo-ra looked up from her navigation station. Captain, the repairs to the Vex-Tar ship are complete. They're ready to depart whenever you give the order. Captain Kim Tae turned back to Krelthis. Your ship is ready, War Admiral. You can leave whenever you want, but remember, if we see Vex-Tar forces in human territory again, the response will be much more severe than what you experienced today. As Krelthis was escorted back to his repaired ship, he understood that he was carrying more than just a message back to his empire. He was carrying proof that the Vex-Tar had encountered an enemy unlike any they had faced before, an enemy that could make them appear weak and helpless while being anything but.